Hey, welcome to Anthem Church. My name is Brian, and I am so glad you're here. If this is your first time, we just want you to know there's a place for you at Anthem Church. We have such a fun time every Sunday morning. We'd love to actually invite you to come in person. Starting Sunday, June 20th, Father's Day, we're going to be meeting every Sunday morning at 9:30 a.m. out at the lawn at Green Oak Ranch. It's beautiful. Bring your lawn chairs. There's stuff for kids. You can actually register on our website, and our website has tons of great things you can find. You can register your kids for Anthem Kids. You can give through the website. And by the way, we have raised almost 7 figures to be able to build out the old Big Lots on Sycamore Drive, and we're looking forward this fall to moving into it. So we're going to have actually a home for the church, and we believe the church isn't the place, it's the people. So we, the church, will fill our new home on Sycamore. Hopefully in the fall. We will have a date for you soon. Also, I want to let you know, guys, you can tune this out for a second. There's a women's worship night coming up on Tuesday, June 29th at the Philpy's house. So that's going to be a really special time for you ladies. Guys, tune back in. We're going to have a great time this morning. We're going to sing together. We've got a message for you, and we'd love to invite you to come in person. So maybe next Sunday, Father's Day, Dad, bring the family and join us. It's going to be a blast at Anthem Church.
Beautifully made by your hand, and there are no questions, there is no doubt that you look at me and feel proud. You're not embarrassed, you're not ashamed. You stand in wonder of what you made. I am loved by you. 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 And all that I am and all that I have is beautifully made by your hand. And there are no questions, and there is no doubt that you look at me and feel proud. And no, you're not embarrassed, you're not ashamed. Oh, you stand in wonder of what you made. I am loved by you. I am loved by you. Oh, and I am loved by you. I
Does anyone else feel like you're turning into your parents? I love the Progressive commercials where the guy's like, no, the waiter doesn't need to know your name. Don't say howdy, you're not a cowboy, right? He's trying to help people not become your parents. He says they're not programs, they're TV shows. You woke up early, no one cares. I think it's funny because it's so true. People used to tell me all the time I look like my mom. And my mom is actually over here to the side, so hi, Mom. But you know what, I really hated that because she's a girl. I'm not a girl. And so I don't like that when people, especially, you know, I was a kid, people would say, you look like your mom. And it's okay if they tell me I look like my dad because he's not a girl. The thing that really would make me mad was when they said that they thought that me and my little sister, who was 2.5 years younger than me, they thought we were twins. That really annoyed me. And eventually I did get taller than her. And so anyways, in a lot of ways, I really am becoming like my dad. I have his mannerisms. My wife looks at me sometimes and says, you are Bob Jones. That's my dad's name, Bob Jones. And there's one thing that I do that's kind of weird. Whenever we go out to eat, we will order something, my wife, Amy, and me. I'll order something, and she will order something. And I always kind of think, I'll share what I have, and I hope that she's going to share what she ordered. But she doesn't have this mentality. She kind of has the mentality of like, I ordered what I want, and I'm going to eat what I ordered, and you eat what you ordered. And so she calls it food FOMO. You know, FOMO is like fear of missing out. And so it's like, I'll like want to give her some of mine, and I'll kind of, I won't say anything, but I'll kind of expect that she'll want to give some to me. Anyways, that's kind of a way that I'm like my dad, because anytime I go out to eat with my dad, I end up with half of his food on my plate. I don't even know how it happens. But the question I want to ask you today is, who are you becoming? Who are you becoming? Who do you look like? Who do you act like? You're like, maybe I am becoming my parents. I need some help from the progressive guy. Who sets the example for you? Is there someone in your life, maybe even not mannerisms or personality, but is there someone in your life that you look back on and they've had a real impact on the way you live your life? There was a guy, I met him when I was in 8th grade. His name's Brett, and Brett was a high school football player. I thought he was so cool, and he led a small group that I was in that did a Bible study every week. And he was my leader all the way from 8th grade to when I was a senior in high school. And I don't remember a single Bible study that we did, but his impact in my life was so huge because he would come pick me up and take me to football games. He'd take me work with his family, like selling fireworks for a few summers. We went and hung out all the time. We went to concerts. I just remember this investment that Brett made. And I just wondered, like, who is it that has invested in you, and what does that look like? You know, if we think about, like, your life and where it's going, isn't it helpful to know, like, who's influenced you and how maybe are you influencing other people? The Apostle Paul, one of the first century church leaders, he had a lot to say about this. He wrote this really great letter to one of the first churches that ever started in the city. It was like a Greek city called Corinth. And he wrote to them, kind of helping them solve issues. He was trying to be a leader to them, you know, kind of like how my friend Brett was to me. He talks about division. He talks about, like, issues with sex. How many of you know that sex can get, like, confusing and dicey? He talked to him about marriage. He talked about, like, sacrifices. Like, back then, there was, like, food that was sacrificed to idols, and they didn't know whether they should, you know, eat the food that was sacrificed to idols. And then they said, you know, he was trying to tell them, like, hey, you're free. You're free, but don't use your freedom. Like, you need to be cautious, even though you're free. And so he's talking about, like, the example that Jesus took. Like, Jesus did everything for us. And then, so if you have your Bible, pull it up. It's 1 Corinthians 11 is where we're going to be. He says one sentence that I think is incredible. And I've actually never preached a message just on one verse before. But today, it's such a powerful verse. We're going to do a message on just one verse. So 1 Corinthians chapter 11, we're just going to read verse 1. Here's what it says. It says, follow me as I follow the example of Christ. Really simple. Paul is following Jesus, and he says, you follow me and I'll follow Jesus. It's like, let's go toward Jesus together. The Greek word for example of Christ is really just imitators. Like, he's telling them, imitate me. I'm imitating Jesus, imitate me. One of the things that really I noticed when I first read this verse, it doesn't say simply follow the example of Jesus. You may think like, it's just me and Jesus and we're good, right? I don't need other people. A lot of people have maybe been hurt by the church or hurt by relationships, and so Jesus may be the only person you trust, or maybe you don't even trust him. Don't trust anybody, but the truth is, it doesn't just say follow Jesus. It says follow me as I follow the example of Jesus, because you and I need each other. You need someone in your life to follow. And as you follow someone that you believe is following Jesus, you're going to start following Jesus. And what's going to happen is you will become that to someone else. If you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. You're meant to be the Jesus that people can see. Because they look around and they may not be able to see Jesus in the world. The Holy Spirit is here. God is at work for sure. But they look around and they just see people. And when they see you, it's just an opportunity for them to see Jesus. And it's not that you're walking around like with God's authority, like trying to tell people what to do. It's that you're walking around with influence in people's lives. Throughout history, God has sent people to be an example. He sent Moses. Moses led the Israelites from like slavery in Egypt all the way to this promised land. Actually, he didn't get to go, but he was God's chosen one to be the example and to lead the people. And then God sent prophet after prophet and leader and kings to lead his people Israel. And then he sent the ultimate leader in Jesus. Jesus was the perfect example of who God is, because Jesus was God and is God. And then Jesus ascended to heaven. He sent the Holy Spirit to empower everyday people like you and me. And they were called apostles, those people who had seen Jesus. And they led his church, and they were sent by God. And I believe just as much as those apostles were sent, you and I are sent to carry his mission, to be Jesus to your friends and your family and our neighborhood, our world. You may not feel this. I really feel the weight of this. If you haven't met me, I've been here for almost 2 years now. I moved from Texas because my wife Amy and I felt called to move here and start a new church in San Marcos, California. And so I feel very sent by God, because we didn't have much when we moved here. We couldn't afford to move to California, much less live in California, and God has provided everything we've needed. God has provided a team. God has provided incredible leaders to come alongside us. And honestly, our relationship with Anthem Church is a huge reason that we're still here today. Our church, the Hills Community Church in San Marcos, we are really excited about even partnering with Anthem, even after you guys have commissioned us and sent us out. It's scary, right, to think that I'm being sent by God, but it's also life-changing. It changes your perspective over and over again. And as I look back on, I guess, the last almost 2 years, I can't help but think of some really cool stories of seeing people who've had their lives changed because of the truth of what the Apostle Paul said here, follow me as I follow the example of Christ. There's a guy that I've been spending a ton of time with the last year. His name's James. And he's been in ministry, but he's never actually been discipled. And so it's been really cool to have James in my life and to build a brotherhood and relationship with him. And now to see him walking and discipling other people has been so cool. And you guys have gotten to see James. I think of another guy named Morgan. Morgan was selling mattresses. And one of the guys on our team, Mike, if you know Mike Ulig, he walked into this mattress store and he went to buy a mattress from this salesman named Morgan. And so it was crazy. Mike buys the mattress from Morgan. It was like a purple mattress. So they're really cool if you haven't heard of it. They're squishy and funny, whatever. But so Mike says, hey, I would love to get to know you. And Morgan thinks in the back of his head, yeah, sure. A lot of people say they'd want to get to know you, whatever. But Mike actually meant it. And so Mike kept he got Morgan's number and called him and hung out with him. They started really becoming friends. And Morgan had, in his head believed in God, but he told me until he saw the example of Mike, he didn't actually have the courage to actually step into obedience and actually following Jesus. And so now, I guess it's been over a year now, but I got to see Morgan get baptized by Mike, and Morgan walking in a really healthy community. And he's not just friends with Mike, he's friends with our entire church. And like he's serving, man, every Sunday night, Morgan wears this silly bucket hat with bananas all over it, and he serves in our kids ministry because he believes that it's not just about him anymore. And he followed the example of Mike that he saw that was really the example of Jesus in him. So it's been fun to watch guys like Morgan like grow in his faith. I have my friend Sky here that I met, I guess, I don't even know how long it was. It's less than a year that I met Sky. And Sky had a really hard past of addiction to drugs and a lot of difficult things through his teenage years. And when I met him, he was 20 years old. And Sky was in a recovery program at Green Oak Ranch. And so actually, in a few minutes, you're going to get to hear Sky rap his testimony. You know, we're in a series called Freestyle. And so Sky's going to actually represent the freestyle. I can't rap, but Sky can. But it was so cool because I remember back before I even met Sky, I would go to chapel at Green Oak Ranch and I saw this kid that was just, he seemed lifeless and he didn't have any hope. And a few weeks later, I noticed a change in him and he kind of came alive. And I found out later that was after he gave his life to Jesus. And he got baptized in the pool at Green Oak Ranch, right where Anthem meets on Sunday mornings. And we got kind of paired together in a mentor relationship. And it's been really fun to watch Sky grow and do stuff like we did driving lessons in my giant Yukon XL, and he's doing great. He's doing great with driving, and hopefully he'll pass the next test. And it's been fun to watch Sky get a job. He started making some money. Last week we helped Sky move out of Green Oak Ranch into a house with roommates, like just growing up in life, and I love getting to know Sky and his family. He has an amazing family. And honestly, I don't even know if I was the example that Sky needed. But the truth is, I'm getting to see Sky follow the example of Jesus. And because of that, his life is different. Another really cool example of God working in someone's life is our Next Gen director at the Hills, Holly Davila. If you're not friends with Holly, I recommend it. She's an excellent friend. Holly saw that a young lady near her age moved in the apartment below her. And so Holly was really intentional. She'd been praying that God would give her neighbors that she could build friendships with. And so she wrote this young lady, her name was Ayla. Holly didn't even know her name yet. She wrote her a note, left it on the doorstep, and basically just told Ayla, hey, we don't know each other, but I would love to be your friend. And so Holly was the first person that Ayla met, besides her cousin, who was her roommate, when she moved to Vista. And so over the time, Ayla, looking back, said that she had kind of made the decision that she wanted to get back into church and she wanted to start reading her Bible, but she was kind of disconnected from community. And so when she met Holly, it was like an instant connection to someone who had a real, like, vibrant relationship with Jesus. And she told me on the phone today that the number one thing she remembers seeing in Holly was just that she was so loving. And you may not realize, like, just the loving things that you do could be the thing that changes someone's story. And so over the last year, Holly and Ayla have become great friends. And Ayla has like grown, and she's really followed the example of Holly and really followed Jesus through that. And now Ayla she's like, I'm not on social media, but I hear stories that she's like posting on Instagram stories, like telling people what Jesus is doing in her life all the time. And like, she stepped up to want to lead a small group. She's leading in our kids ministry. My son Jacob told me the other day he wanted to invite her to his birthday party. He's going to be 9, or he's going to be 10. So he's never wanted to invite a church leader to his birthday party, but I guess Ayla has really made an impact on him. It's so cool to see. When I moved in, me and one other guy were the only Jesus followers on our entire block. And I think that's kind of normal here. I'm from Texas. That was very different from what I've experienced in Texas. And so the only guy who was a neighbor that was a Jesus follower, he actually moved out. And so it was just all people that, a lot of them said, you know, I was raised Catholic, but I don't believe anymore. Or I was raised going to church, but I don't believe anymore. And one of those people was our neighbor Jessica. And Jessica was a widow, is a widow. She's got an 8-year-old daughter, Emma. And Jessica and Emma have really had a hard time the last 4 years without Emma's dad in the picture because he lost his life from cancer. And Jessica was one of the ones who said that, I used to be Catholic, but I don't really believe anymore. And my wife, Amy, really stepped into Jessica's life and was the Jesus that she could see. And Amy and Jessica just started becoming friends, and Jessica's at our house a lot of days of the week now. And Amy started reading the Bible with Jessica, and they would ask hard questions, and they would pray together. And over the last year, we've completely seen God transform Jessica's life. She's praying for other people. She believes that her life has purpose. And she's even brought other people into community, into a church. And there's even incredible stories of how she's been part of that too. So I love telling you stories about what's going on at the Hills. And it's not really about the Hills, it's about what God is doing. It's so funny to look around and see a bunch of young adults at our church, like 20-somethings. And the cool thing is we prayed, Lord, please bring us people who have life experience, who have wisdom, who are maybe older than some of these 20-somethings. And then they all started bringing their parents. And so it's been cool to see like God is bringing multiple generations. And we saw 100 people come to our last preview service on Mother's Day. We had 140 people at our Easter preview. Our next preview is going to be on Father's Day, June 20th, next Sunday. So after you go to Anthem and enjoy Father's Day at Anthem, if you want, come over to Mission Hills Church in San Marcos. We're going to have a car show. We're going to have like a family-friendly worship service. So you can come join us if you want. But God is doing so much. We've been able to train up like 20-something leaders to do relational discipleship. And that's been an incredible thing to see people really start to see themselves as leaders. And so I want to ask you again, who are you becoming? Whose example are you following? And I know a couple people really well at Anthem Church that I would love to invite you to follow. So like Paul said, follow me as I follow the example of Christ. One person who's a great example of this is your pastor, Chase Findell. He doesn't have to be accessible, but he makes himself accessible to you. You could literally go follow him around. And he makes decisions, and he cares for people, and he leads like Jesus. And so go follow Chase Findell around, and you will become more like Jesus because you're following his example as he follows the example of Christ. I want to tell you there's another guy. He's your multiplication pastor named Scott Kirk. Scott Kirk is giving his life away to see new people come to know Jesus, and new churches planted all over the world, both through Anthem and through the North American Mission Board and through Dynamic Church Planting International. He's just so kingdom-minded. It's not about him, it's about the kingdom of Jesus. And so if you get an opportunity to go be around Scott Kirk, follow him around, follow him just as he's following the example of Jesus, and you're going to become more like Jesus, and people are going to want to follow you. Another guy that I've seen really following Jesus at Anthem Church is a guy named Billy Kofer. So if you see Billy, he's like in robotics. He's not a professional Christian. He's doing a full-time job, and he's following Jesus full-time. So if you get an opportunity to go follow Billy Kofer around, you're going to become more like Jesus because of his example. So there's some guys that are doing an incredible job. And if you think maybe a layer below that, like you're following someone, and you know it's a really good thing to say, who are you becoming? But what if someone is becoming you? What if someone's becoming you? And I'll tell you, it's either happening on purpose or it's happening on accident. Especially if you're a parent. Because your kids, whether you want them to or not, are going to become like you. The people you invest in the most are going to become like you. Those friends that you're with all the time, you're rubbing off on them. And they're rubbing off on you. Your roommates, maybe siblings, classmates, coworkers, the people that you invest the most time with, you are rubbing off on them. They are becoming you a little bit. And so are you going to be intentional? Let me ask you this. What if the people who were becoming like you, what if you look and you were so intentional about it that you were proud that they started becoming like you, praying like you, believing in faith like you, trusting God like you, loving people like you, being kind like you, being generous like you? I've got a 3-year-old. His name is Luke. And when he walks around, he does this. He kind of bounces. And I didn't know I did that until I saw him do it. And someone said, yeah, he walks like you. I didn't know that I walked like that until I saw Luke walk like that. And someone said, he walks like me. And so now I try really hard when I walk to not bounce because I don't want to. He looks funny when he bounces, but he's becoming like me. That's you too. People are becoming like you, whether you mean for them to or not. So if you're taking notes, I want you to write this down. Go follow Jesus and invite someone along for the journey. Invite someone along for the journey. The best way to follow is just to stay connected to him. Talk to him in prayer. Invite him into your conversations every single day. Stay connected to him through Scripture. Keep reading these words that he wrote for us. Staying connected to Anthem Church is a great way to try to stay connected to Jesus, because Anthem, every single week, you are going to be encouraged in your relationship with Jesus, in your relationship with people. It's not just showing up, right? It's not just watching this video on a Sunday morning. It's not just coming to Green Oak Ranch on a Sunday morning. It's really investing relationally. Really allowing yourself to be known. And then inviting someone in. It's risky, right? It's risky to really be intentional with someone. What if they say no, right? It's kind of scary, but it's worth it. It's worth the risk because you're going to see a reward of those relationships. You may not see it, but you are a leader. You're a leader. People in your life are becoming like you. And if you're intentional, if you start thinking, okay, if someone's becoming me, I need to be following Jesus. It doesn't mean that you're always going to preach to the homeless. But you know what? That's a great idea. Go preach to the homeless and take someone with you. But that doesn't mean what it have to. It can be going to the store. It can be taking someone with you to work. Take a kid with you when you can. Just to be really, really practical. In order for someone to follow your example, to follow Jesus, you have to be looking to Jesus, staying connected to him through his word, learning how to listen for his voice when you're praying. May we live lives that are worth imitating. May we live lives that are worth imitating. You know, so many people want to be an influencer, right? Like a social media influencer, Instagrammer, YouTube influencer. And a lot of people kind of have this mentality that they want to influence people they've never met. But what if you took your shot and you saw the people who were already in your life and you were a real life influencer? That's what Jesus was. Jesus was a real life influencer. He influenced this guy, Apostle Paul, who's still influencing people today. And you have an opportunity to follow him, to be like him, and to leverage your influence, not for your own fame that's going to die when you die. Maybe it'll last a generation or two. But the truth is, if you leverage your influence for the sake of Jesus and his kingdom, you're investing something that will never end. And it's not going to fail either, because Jesus' purposes and Jesus' plan will always come to pass, because he's the king of the universe. So let's give our lives to that. Let's follow Jesus. Let's find someone who's following Jesus and follow them. Let's invite someone along for the journey. Right now I want to invite my friend Sky. He's going to come stand right here, and he's going to tell his story in a way that only he can, because he's found a way to follow Jesus by following people who are like Jesus. And now he's inviting people in his life and being a real life influencer. So check this out.
You see, there's a lot of ways for people to tell their stories, and ways to hear other people's stories and see their lives. This is a little peek into mine. Yeah, they've been waiting on the verse, but I've been steady running, I ain't sitting on the curb. And I've been steady working, diving deep into the word, and everybody asking to do the things that they've heard. Cause I've been stirred up, fed his presence when I blurred all of the lines of my life. And I was cured and watched my people fall behind in their strife. I've been thinking about the times that we live in, but I don't stress, because I know about the price that was given. Yeah, that's a high price. So I'ma praise him every time I'm in the limelight, cause I know he's doing what I can in my life. So the old man's dead, dead and in my hindsight. So let me rhyme right now. If you're bringing negativity, then go pipe down, because I'm using my ability to go right down the things that he did for me just when I might drown. He gave my crown to me and told me to go tell my town. The mission, same message I've been saying every time I'm spitting. The type of change that got the people seeing that I'm different. The type of change that got the people seeing that I'm lifted. Ask me what the deal is. I'm talking obvious. Change is crystal clear to an audience that I can show them just by practicing my hobby up. For street workers or the lobbyists, yeah, I'm talking godliness. It's not me saying gracias. Yeah.